Okay, hi everyone. So we'll be starting the responsive web design workshop. I'm Arpan. I work with we're part of a design collective called Uncommon. So today's workshop we are going to be mostly focusing on different ways of writing different responsive patterns. So we have a limited amount of time. So let's see how many different things we can cover today. The focus is going to be mostly on the HTML and on the CSS. The HTML I've already prepared for you at this link. If you download that, you'll have a zip file with all the files there. So this way that we are not going to waste time sitting and typing or worrying about mistakes and all that. We'll only focus, we'll take a look at the markup about how it is written and why it is written in that way. And then we'll look at what would be the best way what ways we can create a good layout that would work well in a mobile, in a tablet and on a PC. So one of the things that I see is, before we start that, now how many of you are very comfortable with HTML and CSS? How many of you are not? Okay, so let's do this.
I think there is some index system.
Which one?
Index.html.
No, there is no index.html.
Start a test. There is some chapter 1 and 2.
Okay.
One and 15 that.
Huh?
1 and 15 that.
Yeah.
Index.html is not there.
Right, so you need to open the individual HTML file itself. Don't worry about the links. The links are not, it's not all linked up. Alright. So here's the thing. We have one file getting started.html. So please open that. Huh? Yes, I understand that. So the styles are not written for you. Okay, this is the first exercise. The HTML has been prepared for you. Your job is to write the CSS. Okay? Got it? This is the layout that you have to build. You all said that you know front-end design, you know how to write CSS. So, build this. So your first exercise is to start with this. Write the CSS. Now if you take a look at the HTML file, you have this CSS file already linked. So just open this, it's a blank file. Don't worry so much about the colors and the styling, but the layout. Now here's what I'm actually looking for. Now this is a initial, if you just look at it on the desktop, this is the layout, but this is actually a responsive layout. So you have these three. So initially, at least at the minimum, even if you're not used to responsive layouts, at least just build the desktop layout.
Can you just reshow the URL?
Yes. So this is the layout. You have 10 minutes to build this layout. Okay. Yeah, just pass it on to, after you copy it, it's just a small file. Just copy, pass it on. Experience. Yeah, so if you're there. You need the files?
Yeah.
So if anybody else hasn't gotten the file, that is the link, tinyurl.com/oq5tgkk, I guess. Alright, so download the file. If you can't, I'll share just use the pen drive. Okay, who doesn't have the HTML file open? Okay, are you done copying? Okay, pass that. Did you get the files? You got it? Alright. So that's the link you need to download, otherwise I have the zip file right here. Just copy it. So if you look at the HTML here, it's actually very plain. We have a container, we have a header with h1 and h2, we have a list of links, and we have 3 paragraphs. So we are just formatting that into this layout. It doesn't have to be exact, doesn't have to be identical. This is just for get as close to it as possible. If anybody needs a file, let me know. So everybody has a file now? Make sure that you have this HTML file open, getting started.html, and then open the CSS file and start writing. Okay. So do you have this file open, getting started.html? Yeah, folder. Yeah. So open that in the browser. Take a look at what we have. So none of the styles are there. So now I want this layout built. I want you to build this layout. So there is a file getting started.css. Just do that. So the colors, it doesn't need to be identical. So we are just getting started. So I want you to start with this and then we'll go to the next step. Don't try to worry about pixel perfection or about exact columns. Just do an approximate version of this. In the meantime, so quick question: how many of you have written responsive layouts before? Even a basic responsive layout? Okay, keep your hands up. Just keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. Okay, how many of you have done it without using something like Bootstrap, which does it for you? How many have actually written a responsive layout with your own CSS? Okay, that's quite a good number. All right. Without Bootstrap, without Foundation, like you can use SAS, SOSI, whatever, but not a ready-made framework that does it for you. Okay, so how many of you have not done responsive layouts at all or don't know how media queries work? Like you have basic idea, but you have not actually used media queries before manually. Okay, sorry. Okay, how many of you have finished the layout? Anyone? No problem. Yeah, we are using only plain CSS. Please don't bring in Bootstrap or anything else into your folder. Right? We are going to learn how to write responsive layouts and different design patterns. Like this is a very basic layout, but we are going to be doing more complex layouts which you cannot build using Bootstrap. So, like, let's not use a tool that will restrict our design. Yes. Yeah. This is the file. Okay, now do you know how to write media queries and I'll make this single column too small. Those of you who are comfortable with responsive layouts and know how to use media queries, add this and this. Don't worry about the colors. Don't worry about the backgrounds. Just a rough version of the layout. Yes. That's good enough. That's good. Yeah. So now, when you make it smaller, I want this. Yeah. Yes. I want it to change to 2. That goes from 6 to 3. This goes from 3 to 2. And then this. Yes? Yes, sir? I don't know what to do without this. Yeah, so that's the reason for this workshop, so I'll show you how to do it. Yes? Yeah, so here we have 6 beside each other. When you make it smaller, move it to this. Alright. So how many of you are able to get this done? Yeah, good. Yeah. Okay, so instead of taking too much more time, let me just show you quickly how we could do this. Alright. Now, let's not worry about H1 and H2, they are not really changing. Let's just focus on the chapters. Let's take an approximate what's the S nav. Let's go with block. Okay, let me open this file. Okay, so this is what it initially looks like with the little CSS that I wrote. Let's change. And margin. Okay, this is approximately a rough idea of what we wanted to be. Yeah. But we have some text floating, so we want to clear the float. So just go here. Okay. Okay, so what we have done is we have removed the margins and the padding so it stretches all the way. Now remember, we are doing very rough, we are not trying to go with exact numbers and all that because you can do that later. Just to see the pattern. We have the list element which we are taking it, floating it to the left, giving it a width of about 15%. And so we are able to fit in 6 of them. What we want to do now is, we want to change it at a slightly smaller screen size. So let's set it. Okay, so if you don't give overflow hidden, then this element, the unordered list, the UL, when you have elements inside it that are floated, the UL itself doesn't have a height or a width. Like it doesn't have a height at all. So by setting it to overflow hidden, the unordered list comes all the way here and pushes the other content below it. So it's just basically clearing floats. It's a clear fix. That's how clear fix works. Like the simplest way to do it.
You don't have to do all that before, after, and all that.
That's
This is the simplest way to do it. Like it depends on how.
But like, I mean, is it supported or overflow?
This is the simplest way to do it. This will work in our browsers, overflow hidden. That other one gives you other options. Like you might have an item that is coming out of the form and overflow hidden. Like if you have an item that
Different things.
yeah. So the other way gives you more flexibility, but for the sake of this thing, this is the simplest way to do it. Okay.
Quick question.
Yes.
What is the advantage of using float left over display line?
So this is like it doesn't really matter. You could use display inline block and do the same thing. Except that float allows you to give precise margins. Display inline block will use it as an inline element, which will always have a space after it. So you won't be able to control the exact space margin.
So in this case, if you have 5 things, if you have 4 elements, 25% each, there's a tendency of the fourth guy to come down because it's 25 plus the spaces.
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
Okay. So here. Okay, so we have this part done. Now what we need to do is we want to change it at a certain bit. So then we add a media query. This is what it looks like.
Upon basic question, what is a media query?
Yeah, I'll just show you. I'll explain one second. Okay. Now, in CSS, when you're adding a CSS file to your HTML file, you have a thing called a link style sheet and all of that. Then you can even say media screen. Then you have another type of media which is called media print, so that you can say that instead of having colors, instead of having a background of black, I just want the background to be white and I want the text to be black. Like you can customize it for print, you can customize it for, like you also have media, you can have CSS which is just for a screen reader, for example. We have different medias. Now, media queries in CSS3 have additional features which allow you to specify that, okay, this is for the screen, but apply this CSS only when the maximum width is 640 pixels. That means if the screen is 640 pixels or less, it will make this yellow. So, if I make this narrower,
Background.
yeah, sorry. See this? If you take a look, it's white, make it narrower, it's yellow. So basically this CSS, anything written inside this media query only will apply if it meets this condition. So you have options of maximum width or you have the reverse which is minimum width. So start from this and then when it crosses a certain width, 700 pixels and greater, then do this. So you can do that. That's basically what media queries do. If you go online, I will give you links at the ending. There are a lot of media queries. Not all of them are supported, but you have options of max width, min width. You have you can select specifically, you can do a layout which is for portrait versus landscape. But for the most part, this is the one that is most commonly used, max and min. So you are basically adjusting the layout based on the width of the screen. No, that's what I'm saying, right? You could say that regardless of the max width, I want a tablet or a phone in portrait to have one view and a tablet or a phone in landscape to have a different view. That's not a common use case, but you can do it. That's an option that is there for you depending on your design. Okay, so anyone have a doubt about how media queries work? Or did you get this part? Okay, so here's the thing. What we are going to do here is this. We set a certain width for this element, for the nav li, right? We are going to change the width over here. We said that the list element is 15% wide. So at 640 and below, we are saying now refresh this. So with just this, we said at this screen size, change the max width. So now each list element is 30% of the screen. Can you now do, now since you have seen this, see how you can do the next one. So add another media query below this, but make it 400 pixels or 480 pixels and then have them in just 2 beside each other instead of 3 beside each other. Okay, so one thing everyone needs to remember is that we are talking about style sheets. This is CSS, so you have cascading style sheets. So one thing overrides, so this overrides the previous one, right? But if the previous line is specific, for example, here you have nav li, and here also we have nav li, right? So both have the same specificity with the media query changing. But if you don't do that, or if you do this, like you have nav li here, which is less specific, but that is more specific. That will still override this. This won't work because that is more specific. Right? Same way if you have a class. So remember when you are writing CSS elements, the styles, make sure that your specificity, you don't make it too specific. Or if you do, you will have to use that at every stage. So if you have like navigation, nav, UL or header, then nav, then UL, then LI, then A, then you will have to use the same thing in every place that you want to do it. If you want to override it, or you have to add additional classes to that. Okay? So try to keep it as less specific as possible. Okay, so far this is like the most basic layout possible.
Sorry?
So this is just to introduce how to use media queries. Are we done with this part? Any doubts? Okay, so let's take a look at the next layout, which is actually the layout that I want to talk about. Now this layout is very simple. Like it looks exactly like what Bootstrap allows you to do. You have columns and they merge and different things. Except that we are adding like instead of just 2 layouts, you have like 3 layouts. So they adjust in between, they merge, things like that. Now, but this is actually a very bad design pattern. Okay. Now why is this a bad design pattern? I'll explain this here. Let's take a look at the next one. Now here we have some paragraphs over here, an article, and we have a block quote, right? So this is one column. So you have one column here, and one column here. Now by default, in the normal way, if you merged it, this one would go below the article, correct? Now if you are reading on a mobile or on a smaller screen, does it make sense for the full quote to be here or to be at the very bottom? It should be beside, or it should be at the minimum. If you have less space, it should come in here. Or here, wherever, whichever paragraph it is a part of. It should not go to the very bottom, right? But that is the way that we generally write our layouts are generally written like that in responsive layouts. You have one container, you have 1 column, 2 column, 3 column, you reduce it and then you reduce it and that's it. But that's not optimal. You have to think about what your content is doing. Like the previous talk was also about that, right? Your content is important. That is what's most important. Your layout has to facilitate, make sure that whichever screen your user is using, the content is presented in the best way possible. Okay, and that's one thing. Second, now you have an article and then you have some information about the author. Now, if you are reading on a phone, do you want to read about the author first or do you want to read the article first? The article is most important. Now, if you are reading on the desktop, you can just ignore that. Correct? You can ignore it and you can read the article if you want to. But on a mobile, like if you have to scroll through like 2-3 screens before you can actually see the article, that's going to be irritating. So what ideal would be that this goes to the bottom and this merges in here. And that's the layout that we are going to that's the first layout that we are going to work on. Okay? So look at what happens here. Make it smaller. The author info disappeared. Scroll to the bottom. It's right here. Alright? First. Second, we still have the block quote over here. I want it to merge in. Like this. Okay? So, thank you. Alright, so this is the first exercise that we are going to work on. Alright? So, I'm going to show you now, this looks very impressive. Thank you for your claps, but the fact is that this is extremely simple to do. Alright? And most of us don't do it this way because we use things like Bootstrap or Foundation and things that handle it automatically for us. So we don't think about the design, but we are supposed to be designers. We are supposed to design it in a way that makes sense, not in a way that some framework tells us to do it, right? That's what we are here for. If you just use Bootstrap and let that make all the decisions for you or for me, then why are we here, right? Our job is to make things not just look good, but to work well. So this is the very first exercise. Next exercise is going to be. This is going to be like a small part of it, which is just this image with the caption modifying a little bit. That's 1. And 3, a slideshow which is almost all CSS with just a little bit of JavaScript. So in Souvik around, I think he'll be happy if he sees that. But, right, so 2 elements animated separately with about 6 to 10 lines of JavaScript. Everything else is done in CSS. Now, creating a slideshow that is responsive has some complications, which we'll cover when we come to that. And here's the final, the navigation over here like this. But when you change it, Facebook style side menu. Alright. So this is basically what we are going to try to cover today in 3 hours if we can do it. So we'll try. That's the reason that I've given you all the HTML, the JavaScript, everything is given to you so that you don't have to spend time doing that. All our time is going to be focused on just writing the layouts. Even the styles, the colors, the fonts, everything is set for you. So if you open the file, you'll see that all the colors and everything is set. If you open the second file, article, stu.article HTML, open that file, you'll see that all the styles, the colors, the fonts, all of that is done for you. So you don't have to spend time trying to make it look good. So I don't want you to waste your time doing that. Today we are only going to focus on creating a good layout, a good responsive layout. Alright. So the basic point of this workshop, so when I'm saying responsive design, web design done right, is about look at the content, look at what kind of a layout makes sense at different screen sizes. Okay. And design it accordingly. So you are not just thinking about it in terms of columns, but in terms of how the different pieces of content are connected to each other. And in this case, when we are doing this, one of the things that you've probably heard a lot about is about mobile first design. Starting with the mobile first. And to do something like this, you need to start with the mobile first, because how do you know that this way it's not just with the mobile, you start first with the HTML itself. So make sure that the structure is right. If the structure for this is right, then to change it from the small screen to the bigger screen is actually very, very simple. Alright? So we are going to see how to do that. Let's just open it. Open the file. Oh, and by the way, this menu, slide in, slide out, is without any JavaScript. As in, literally no JavaScript is there. Not a single line of JavaScript for this. Not even just when you click on it, there is no on-click handler. It's just CSS with target, which I will explain how that works. Anyway. Alright, so this is what we are trying to do. Let's take a look at the okay. Let's open the file. Open this file. This is what you will see. Okay. So all the styles are set for you. You have the initial links. So we are starting with mobile first. So this is the mobile. Initial, all the styles are for the mobile layout. Scroll down. So you already have this part done, right? The merging part. We don't have to worry about merging part. We are just going to figure out how to move it to the side. All right. So this is the initial layout. This is the mobile layout with essentially no style set up there. We have this text. We have the slideshow without any slides happening.
So when you say the merging part is already figured out, that bit of the...
As in, it is already inside, it is merged. Like you're starting with mobile first. Let's look at that. So for this, let's look at the code. Let's look at the markup. Now the navigation is pretty simple. You have nested lists, right? There's no that's how we normally write a multi-level navigation. Next, this is where the important, but all the fun happens basically. You have the article. Inside the article, you have the header, okay, which is the title. Then you have the section, which is the story over here. In the story, you have paragraph, second, third paragraph, and then the block code right there. Like if you remove the CSS, you still get that same layout. Okay, you can even take a if you want, you could just say okay, remove the CSS files completely and refresh it. And you have the block code right there without any styling. Correct? So the markup has to be written properly for this to work. So in the sensible manner. So if a person, assuming let's say if someone who is differently able, the person who is blind is reading through your article using a screen reader, they are also going to get the exact same order. Which makes sense, right? They should also, even for a person who's using a screen reader, they still want the block quote in the place where a block quote is supposed to be. It would make absolutely no sense for this to be read at the very bottom. Correct? So that's what we are doing here. So we have the markup. Any doubts about any part of this, about the HTML itself? Right. So let's start with the CSS. Right. So we start with, okay, we have the page. Let's just give some margins or some padding to it. Or actually there's, okay, how many of you know what is box sizing? Border box. Anyone? Few of you. Many of you don't know. Okay. So normally in CSS, when we are looking at the previous layout, let me just open that. Now if you see here, we set the width to 15% and gave a margin of 1. Or if you do anything with the padding as well, if you have this width set to 15% and you add padding of 2%, what will happen? The width will change to 17%. It will be 15% plus 2. So it is adding to whatever the width is set. Huh?
90.
Right. Correct. So if you add 1% on both sides, so totally 2%. Or whichever. Right. So whatever you are doing, you are adding padding, margin, border, everything adds to what is already there. Right? It doesn't stay within, like, if you wanted, let's say 4 columns here, and you set 4 columns to 25% each, and then you say padding of 1%. Instead of being 25%, it will increase in size. Again, even if you add, like, you want a 1 pixel border, that 1 pixel border will break your layout. Correct? Like, you have 25% width, and then you have a 1 pixel border, and you will change your width so that 4 columns don't fit in your place as they are supposed to. Correct? So, border box is something that's a little newer, which basically says that whatever the width is set, paddings, borders, everything has to be within that. Okay? So that means if I set something to 25% and then have a 10 pixel border, it will not break my layout. It will stay within the 25%. Okay? So that's what we are going to do for this. We are going to say that we want to use sorry, let me open the yes, so open the article.css and do this. So essentially we are saying I want everywhere, every element to use this. Okay? So every element that we are doing, instead of having to set at each place, just star every HTML element, box sizing, border box. Next, let's go to page. Okay, let's say padding of, what do you want to do, a percentage? 1% or 2%? And we want, like, if you have a very big screen, like, we don't want it to go like so wide, right? So let's set a max width of, what do you want to set it to? Now we don't want it to be 100%, we want it to be like in a less than that, right? So max width of, let's say, 960 pixels and margin. Now it will stay centered and it won't cross 960 pixels.
What is in the margin?
0 auto. So if you want to center an element, unless it's, as long as it's not floated, a block element, you want to center it, just set the left and right margins to auto. Next, okay. Now next part, what we want to do is we want to focus on the article right now. Okay, we have the image, we have the slideshow, we have the navigation. We are going to look at that later, but we are not going to look at that right now, right? We don't want all of those in the way while we are doing this. So let's just hide them for now, temporarily. So nav, and this is figure, and this is slideshow. Okay. How do I hide the line numbers?
in the preferences. Edit preferences.
Let's say line number 4.
Okay, whatever. Alright. So we are just hiding the elements that we are not working on now. So normally you don't want to use display none unless you don't want it to be visible at all. But for the sake of just temporarily, we just don't want those in the way. We are just going to look at the article. So this is what we have. Let's also hide the links. So do this. Okay. So this is what you have. Okay. Now, first part, we are going to see how, like on the mobile screen, this is what is there, right? As you move slightly larger to a larger screen, we want this to move to the right. Got it? Any doubts? Okay, so let's do that. Let's say that once you cross 600 pixels, let's set like. Alright. So here's one thing about media queries. Don't necessarily fix on search on specific screen size. Don't say that this is for mobile, this is for tablet, and this is for desktop. Because think about it. You have small phones that are 3 and 3.5 inch screens. You have large phones that are 5.5 and 6 inches. Now you don't want to give this now a 3.5 inch screen and a 5.5 inch screen. If you look in terms of the total area, it's more than twice as big, right? So there is no need. There's no real reason for you to give the same layout to every cell phone, every smartphone. You can customize it. My recommendation would be not to customize based on the device, but customize it based on your content and the screen size. So if now this article, if it looks fine, like you have websites where the article spans the full width or is a single column even on desktop. Like you don't need to worry about like, okay, it is on a desktop, so I need to have 2 columns. There is no such rule. Look at your content, look at your requirements and how it looks, and adjust your layout accordingly. Alright. So in this case, we are taking 600 pixels. Like if you don't like 600 pixels, if you think it needs to be 640 or 480, do that. Alright. Okay. So at this size, now we are going to make some adjustments to the layout. So let's say that here in the story. So let's specify story and P. And do this, open your page, refresh it. Now look at your layout. What happens? Your block code looks a little messed up. That's fine because we haven't yet worked on that. We wanted this to be 75% width, right? We got that. Now all we want is, now this is kind of already moved because of the float, but we want to move it properly. So this is what we'll do. Okay, instead of 75, let's change it to 70%. I think that width will look better. But no rule there. Now we'll set this to 25% and float right. Now refresh your page and see what happens. You got it? Did you do this? Look at your page. Story, the paragraph, 70% and float left. Block code, 25% and float right. Not able to see? Let me move it up.
No, it's fine. It's clear.
Are you able to see the screen, or do you want the lights to stop? Fine. Okay. Yeah, that's the light is not making a difference. Just like the angle is too sharp. Okay, so here we have media query, story P width 70% and float left, and for the block code 25% width and float right. Now, if you look at what happens now, refresh your page. This is what we wanted. Was that difficult? Just simple. Float left, float right, set the width.
Can you adjust this placement according?
Okay. Now,
To the top of the screen.
so this, yeah.
Yeah, relative to the top of the screen, you want to maybe push it down.
Okay. So right now, this is related to this, right? So you can either set a margin for this, or if you want it to be below this, just say clear both. Let's say if you want this, instead of being beside this, you want it to be after this, right? So just say clear both.
Horizontal.
Yeah, I put it down. Huh? If you want it to move to the very top, then you have to change it a little bit in the way you do it. But you can do it. Yes. Okay, all of you, how many of you have gotten this? Okay. All right. Okay, so you understand how do you understand how floats work? Floats basically, it's essentially every element goes to the top left. So assuming you are floating to the left, so it goes to the very top. The next element, if there is based on the width, if there is space, if the next element is floated, it will come to beside it. Let me demonstrate. It's better if I do it this way. You have this paragraph, and then you have the second paragraph beside it. Now when I say clear, instead of being beside it, it will always go below it. Even if there is space beside it, clear will move it below. That's it. So, when I have this, look at where it is right now. It is below this, right? So these two elements are actually beside each other. Like it's at the right element. If I don't have the clear, it is beside it. If you say clear, then it goes below it. That's it. Now about moving the other stuff, we'll look at other questions later about other different layouts. But for now, let's just focus on this layout. Finish this layout because I don't know if I'll have time to cover everything in the 3 hours. Based on that, we can have a discussion after this. Alright? Okay, so this part. Anyone have any doubts about this so far? Yes? It's fine? Alright, let's go to the next one. Yeah. Okay, what's happening? You said yes, for this second.
haven't done any of this. Why this? Because it is the first time. So this is the spacing and
okay. All right. Yes.
because those elements are here. There's a figure.
Okay, so everyone, one thing to remember. Remember these lines. Make sure that you have this. Okay, otherwise these elements will interfere while we are doing this layout. When we come to that element, those elements will work on them. For now, make sure they are hidden. Okay, first. Second, make sure that you are keeping the same, as much as possible, keep the same numbers. You can experiment with them later, because if you do something different and then you say it's not working, I can't fix it. Okay, now the third part was, in this, we wanted, once you go, so from 600 pixels, you cross 800 pixels, you want this to come to the side. Can you try to figure out, use the same method, same technique that we use for that, use the same technique and see if you can do this. Try to move the story to the right and get the footer up here. Yeah, that's it. Try it. It's very simple. Yeah. So if anybody has a question in the first part, let me know. In the meantime, those of you who have finished this, please try to do the second part.
This is disregarded, right? So this looks at what is there, but so water and all that. It kind of so why is this position going to wrong? Why is this whole second function? So if all elements are quoted are integrated clear about this. No, I was just looking at you. So now, why is this?
And I have to spend a little bit more time. We can look at it afterwards. So basically, okay, what's the width that you said? 17. Okay, so actually it should have moved to the side. It should have moved beside it, but it hasn't. We'll look at why it did. No, it doesn't. It should automatically move to beside it.
But I might have to take it from the screen. Is within it. That's something. So there's something issue
with the margin. So we'll look at it with remove the styling and do that. Okay. Next, anyone else has a doubt so far in the first part, not the footer? Okay. So work on the footer and see if you can get it up there. Get this to come here. Move this. So right now we have done. This is what we have done, and the footer is all the way bottom. I want this to come to the left. Okay, who got it? 1, good. 2, 3. That's very good. 4. How many of you did not understand how to do it? This part. Use the same technique that we used before. Just the floats and the widths. Got it? Okay. Didn't get it. Just try to use the same way that we did here. Just floating into the left and the right. I'll show you. You need to move the entire. So make sure that you're adding another media query. Please don't do this in the same media query because we also want this. We want this layout for the tablet, right? Then when you go to the desktop, then you want, or you go to the larger screen, then you want the footer to come. So don't do the next part in the same media query. So first thing is we have this media, this query over here. So 600 pixels. So add another one, which is for, let's say, 900 pixels. Okay. So we have one for 600. Add one more for 900, and then do your code over here. Remember, there are two elements that we are working on right now. Ignore the paragraphs, the block quotes, all of that is done. Now we are focusing on the story and the footer. Just those two elements. So make sure that you are looking at that and not looking at trying to float the story or the paragraph. Don't float the paragraphs now again. Work on the story and the footer. Good. Perfect. Fine. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So should I show you? Okay, those of you who did not get it, should I show you how to do it now? Okay. 3 more minutes. So this Okay, your time's up. Now let's look at what we need to do. We want to, this entire thing is a story. Okay, so we float this to the right and give it a width of 70% or whatever you want to, and we have the footer. We float it to the left and give it a width as well. That's all. Try it. Let's go to the code.
We also do simply do margin right on the page. Floating it.
Yeah.
You can just say margin right also.
No.
That's right.
Margin.
Right. Because automatically the blocks are behind you. The footer comes to the top. So if I just do a margin right, I don't need to float my footer. Just takes because the other two floats.
Okay. So you got this. We have the footer came up, but the image is too big. So what is the option? What is the solution for that? Just go here to the top and say image max width 100%. So it will never go outside its container. Got it? Any doubts? Yeah, I'm coming. Let me just show you the source. Yes? What's happening? So if you are writing the exact same CSS and there is a mistake, there will be some bug in your code. Like one small element might not be there. It's a footer element, it's not a class. See, double check if it's not working, there is always going to be some tiny one dot somewhere, one semicolon somewhere, or a bracket that you're using the wrong bracket. Most of the mistakes are just that. You just use a small tiny thing that's very simple. Yes, it's an HTML file. There are elements that do more, but like actually in mine, if I yeah, so it doesn't really yeah. So it just depends. Like you do have like ones that do the stuff for you. Some of the equipment. Actually, like essentially in these kind of cases, in my work I'm mostly using SAS. In SAS, if you made this mistake, it would blow up and say there is there's a problem in some syntax error, which is actually like I like the fact that it blows up because then I can use it. So
In SAS,
I'll show you how that works. In SAS, you can nest media queries. Like you can nest it inside another element. So if you had story, you would have this media query inside it here, right here. Like instead of nesting an element inside the media query, and it will render the correct. I'll show that. Assuming we have time, or else I'll show you and give you links where you can take a look at how it works. Any doubts so far? So this is what we have completed. So let's just do a quick review. So we have the article, we have the blog posts, we have the story with the blog posts, and we have the footer. We started with a mobile layout. We started with this, with the blog post in here and the footer at the very bottom, right? Then, as the screen size increases, we are moving the blog post to the sidebar. For this, all we are doing is we are just using simple floats, float left, float right, and width. Then, next, doing the same thing for the footer, float left 20%, 25%, float right 70%, and then max width for the image 100% so that it doesn't go outside its borders. That's it. So, exercise 1 is complete. Now we are going to look at the next part. Any doubts so far? Yes. Setting to max width 100%. Here, look at this. Image, max width 100%. So when you say maximum width of 100, it can be less than that, but it won't go beyond that. Okay? Okay, so how many of you have used this max width 90? How many of you understand this? So what we are saying is that you're not saying that it should always be 960 pixels. It should be 960 pixels or less. So that means if it is on a mobile screen and the screen is only 300 pixels or 400 pixels wide, it will be 400 pixels wide. But if it is greater than that, if the screen is like you are on a very large screen, you don't want your paragraphs to be very, very long so it's difficult to read. They are saying it should never go beyond this. Okay? So depending on your layout, you might have 960 as a maximum, you might have 1200 as a maximum. It depends upon you. Like some apps that I work on, we have like up to 1200 pixels wide or whatever. But it's your option. But this sets it to a certain thing and this centers it. So this part is done. Now we are going to look at the image. Now this should be very simple for you to do this part. We have, so the HTML tag is a figure. That's the HTML5 tag. Figure which has an image inside it and it has a figure caption. So basically it says that image and the caption are together inside a single element. And I want this layout on a larger screen, but on the smaller screen the layout is already done. So can you do this? So use the same method that we use for the paragraph and the block code. On the small screen, it is like this. One below the other, which is already, if you look at it, it's already there. What you need to do is, right now we have hidden figure, right, at the top here. So remove this, just go here, say figure, display, block and refresh your page, you will see a bug. So make sure that you have this. This is what you should get. Figure, display block, and clear both. Only figure. Forget about the slideshow. Right now we are only looking at the figure. So already everything else is hidden, right? So only the figure we are displaying for now and looking at that. Yes, that's it. Okay, so did you get that? We have this. We want this. Forget about the slideshow right now. Only this. We already have this. It just needs to change to this. That's all. The caption has to go to the right. That's it. Yes? Hey, tell me, what's the problem?
It's not.
Huh?
It's not taking.
Yes, that's what you want. That's what. Now you need to do the next part. So to get this, you need to do the clear first. Now the next part is the course norm that you need to do. So to do the next part, that's your exercise. Okay, so you have 5 minutes to do this. We are looking at that. So we have safe power first. The very first article. Remember how we did that? I'll explain how that goes. Okay. Alright, so I'll tell you what's happening. Now many of you have gotten part of it right. Now we are taking a look at this. Here you have the figure. In the figure you have the image, right? They're saying float, no, let's set the width. 70%. Float, left. You're getting this? Or if you're even floating the second element, you are getting this problem. All of you got this? Now we had the exact same problem in the very first time when we were doing the links, where the element was. So you just need to add clear fix to this. Because two elements are floated, the container element now doesn't have a height at all. So if you inspect the element, now look at the figure. The figure has a height of 0 pixels. Because both of it containing elements are hidden. I mean both of them are floated. So all you need to do is go here. Overflow hidden to the figure element and you're done. So this is what we have gotten.
We need to add that this element.
Okay, so complete this. Make sure that you have it all the way till the bottom, and then now we have gotten all the elements positioned in the right places. Next, we'll look at actually creating the animation and having the slideshow.
You need the margin 0 padding.
Because by default it has a marginal padding and it's going below because it's not absolutely positioned right. But it's like this. So it was going below. It doesn't harm. Okay, so we don't have a lot of time. Everyone gotten this far? We have set the width and the height and the position and all that is done. We have it. The responsive part is done. Now the next part is to create the actual animation, right? So let's do that. Okay, just look at this part. Can you see this? Can you see this here? Can you see class being changed, current, previous, and that? Okay, so that is what the JavaScript is doing. That's all. Okay, it's telling us, it's letting us, giving us information that this is supposed to be the current slide, this is the previous, this is the next, and that we will use those classes, current, previous, and where are next? No, only current and previous, right? So we are going to use these two classes to create our slideshow. All right. So first, now in a slideshow, every element all the elements should not be displayed here, right? Only the current element should be here. So by default, we don't want this box here. So we are going to change the positioning here. Go here, and instead of left 0, we want the element to come from the right side, right? So we'll say instead of left 0, let's set it to 101%. What does that do? Now when you do it here, we can actually say overflow hidden is okay. Now, since I removed overflow hidden, you can see this. Can you see where it is now? It's just like this is the container and it's just right outside it. Now what we will do next is, we'll just say that take these two items, okay, so what we are saying, by default put this outside like at 101%, and the current slide make it 0. So bring it to the position that we want it to be. So refresh it here. Now see what happens. The slides are changing. That slide comes here. Correct? Now, if you want to actually create the animation, what you do here is this. You go here and say, what's it? Transition duration. That's all you need to do to create the actual animation. So you set it to 101%, then set it to 0%, and every time the class changes, the position changes, but instead of happening just jumping, it moves. Can you see that? Now, okay, so we got the first part. So we are having this element coming here, but then we want the current element not to go there, but to go here. Right? So then we add another class. We already have the class in this, we saw, right? Previous. There's a class called previous. So let's just do that. Take this here. Okay. Refresh and see what happens. What happened?
Trying to figure something
So, I mean, this is the core part. So, you still have a little bit with z-index, like you need to make sure that when it's going back there, you don't want to be visible, things like that. We'll take a look at that, but like this is what the core part of your animation is working here.
First one goes to the path, right? Sound left.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, we'll need to set z-index.
Yes.
So, we'll do that. Okay, but now before we go to the z-index part, we still need one more thing. Now, we want these two elements, they are being animated together. We want to animate, like we want the text to come slower. How do you do that? Huh? Just change the duration. So go here to the code. Here you have transition duration 1 second, right? So copy that into the span and change it to 1.5. And refresh. That's it. So see, CSS is actually now with all the new features that we have in CSS2, CSS3, there are so many features that we have that work right now in current browsers. So you don't need to depend on JavaScript to create all the animations for you. Like this is just a very basic animation. You can do much more complex stuff than this. But the idea is that whatever you can do with CSS, do it with CSS. So see the JavaScript now, it's very, if you look at the code, it's so easy if you actually go and want to modify it or want to change how it works. Or if there is a bug, you can actually very easily see what's happening and fix it. Because all your layout stuff is happening here. So if you want to hide the stuff that is beside, make sure you go here, overflow hidden. Now the animation happens. Any doubts so far? Yes? Hmm? Yeah? We haven't yet done it. We need to do that.
The current one you can always keep accessing. Like you have a class of the current.
Yeah, so we have a class which just set the second for that. What we can basically do is that let's just see this works. Yeah, just 1 second, just double checking it's working. It's still not working.
So is it like safer to set the previous
Huh?
ones z index to minus 1?
Yeah.
And
Last,
No, it's actually not previous, so it doesn't.
last check. No, the standard that it could be 100.
Yeah?
Current only can be
What?
standard analyzed that index
Yeah,
can be lower than the current one can be.
that's what it is, right? Z index 1 and Z index 10, but that's not working.
so I have it working,
Okay.
but I've done it differently.
Yeah.
What I've done is, for your current and previous,
Yeah.
for the current I'm setting it to 0.
Hmm.
For the previous I'm setting it to minus 1. So when the thing slides back, right, it goes behind the image and is not visible. But your current image is always at z index 0.
Are you setting it to the image or the LI element?
The image and the span.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. The mistake is that. So, so you still have a problem with the text.
Yeah, so I haven't set it to 10 and 1. I set it to 0 and minus 1.
Okay.
Just give the current one and leave that, remove that.
Yeah. Fine. Okay, so this is the final code. So this is all basically the entire CSS, the entire layout or the entire slideshow done mostly just CSS. Open the nav.css. We are going to do it here. Now here's one thing that till now we have been doing one layout for like we are building from the mobile layout and then slowly building up the larger layout. Now in this case what we are going to do is we are going to have two completely different layouts. One for mobile, one for desktop. Because like there is very little similarity in between the two. So if you first do the mobile and then try to override, you will have to override so many different things. So for the sake of this, we'll just have everything in a media query. Alright? You can always do the regular method and then override it, but it will mean a lot more CSS for you. So let's start with this layout is already done for you, so you have the navigation which you have this already there, right? Now we are going to start with, let's do the mobile layout first. So add a media query. We'll give this mobile layout for up to tablets for the menu. Like you can change it, you can do it differently. This is a bit good.
Should it be matched with?
Right. So 800 pixels and below, we want to give it the sliding menu, and above that we want to give it the regular menu. So let's start with both these elements. So nav is going to be fixed. So you have the navigation element here, and you have the page. So okay, let's say background transfer. Okay. So let's see what's. Okay, so initially we are only looking at the navigation. Okay, so you have this you have it behind the content. So when we actually add a background, so you won't be able to see it later. But the idea is okay. So you are saying position fixed. So even when you scroll this should not be affected. It should still stay in the same place wherever you are. First, second, you want it to be from the top to the bottom. You want it to stick, right? So you are just saying from top to bottom and stick to the left. So this, and we are giving it a width of 200 pixels. So it will always stay within this area, no matter what the size of its the screen itself is. When you go bigger than that, that doesn't affect. Only 800 pixels and below. Now for the page, what you can do is okay. What is this?
Menu.
So we have added a link over here. We have added two links over here. Okay. So we are using this. We are doing this without any JavaScript. We are just saying that we have two links in the same class. One is show, one is hide, and the href is different. So it just uses an anchor tag. Okay. Now look at this ID. What is this ID? So this, when this matches this, you can target it. Okay, so when you click on this, the browser knows that this element has to be treated differently. So it's another new pseudo class in CSS3. So make sure that this is correct. Alright, now let's take a look at this.
Say that again.
I'll explain. This is ID menu, right? Here you have an anchor tag with the same ID. So when you click on this, you can target this. In CSS, without JavaScript.
It's old one, right?
Huh?
This internal navigation.
It's not used, like it's not supported, well supported in older browsers. You can use it. No, so see, normally when this old method is when you just scroll to it. But I'm talking about applying CSS with it.
The hash of that page.
It does go to the hash of the page. But the hash of the page is this.
I didn't get it.
Oh, so you're saying when you do navigate to hash menu,
Yes.
like the class showed to that menu.
I'll show you. We'll see. Okay, you know pseudo classes like hover and focus, right? So this is another pseudo class called target. So what we'll do here is this. The new target. Okay, so when the menu is targeted, the menu still stays in the same place. It's the page that moves. So how do you tell the page to move when that is hit? So what you say is menu target plus page. So essentially we are telling it that the page element that is after this has to be moved. Okay, so here you have position absolute, and let's say you say the position here is left 0. Here you say position left 200 pixels. Okay, now go here. Did you see what happened? The URL over here changed. When that URL changes over there, we can use this target to target that. Okay, so you could just even do something like so when you're saying menu target, right? So whenever that URL changes to, when that hash is clicked, you get the hash in the URL, then you are able to use that to target CSS. So essentially you can have certain level of behavior essentially just with CSS over here. So you click on something, you hide and show stuff. So how you have hover and focus, you have target. So you can say okay, so now one more thing is we have two links over there. So when it is hidden, you want one link to be displayed, one link to be. So we'll just do that. Menu dot. Okay, and we have our menu dot. Okay, so this is what we have right now. We have a link. We have two links there. One link has the exact hash which matches this hash menu, right? So when you click on that, we are able to target some CSS for this and use that also to target some CSS for this. And then when you click on that, we are just saying that okay, hide this link and toggle to the other link. So look at what we are doing here in the CSS. So by default, you have two links for menu. One is show, one is hide. So the show link is displayed and the hide link is hidden. So when you click on that, it shows the menu. When you show the menu, we are reversing it and saying that show this link, hide the other link. So there are two links in your markup here, right? You have two links here, 1 and 2. So this one is used to hide, show. This is used to hide. So with pure CSS, just with a couple extra elements and using the target method, we are able to hide and show, basically do the menu. Now the next part is do the animation. Add it. You know how to do it, right? Just add a CSS transition. Yes. Okay, so how many of you know what this is? Plus. Okay, so basically plus is that if you have this element here, plus says that okay, this is the next element after it. So if we have a page element that is immediately after menu, it will work. So you can do it in such a way, for example, let's say you have you have a paragraph and you have some spacing above a paragraph. But just below a header, you don't want spacing. So you can say paragraph top margin top 20 pixels or 2 ems, and H2 plus paragraph margin top 0. So that any paragraph that is immediately after a margin won't have top padding. So you can have a header and then a paragraph right after it. So you'll have spacing between paragraphs, but not between a header and a paragraph. So, or you can, yeah.
So when you fix this also.
Yes. Here. You don't. So you have this, but you don't have this.
So why is that second one?
Second one having hashtag.
Why is this required?
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Because we have fixed it, position fixed, not position absolute. Position fixed is always
Always.
in relation to the viewport.
Can you scroll? Yeah.
Okay. So you should be able to see most of the code.
Something with the code is same.
Okay, so if the code is same but it's not working, that means you have not typed it correctly. Delete it, type it again.
Can you please tell me what the plus does again?
Okay, so look at the HTML here. You have the navigation here, and then you have the page right after it, right? So what we're saying is, plus says that any page element that is immediately after this. So if you had, you could say the same thing for header plus section would target only this section but not any other sections. So the first one is immediately right after it.
So when I click on it, it takes to that section.
Here?
When I click on it, it takes to that section.
No, the plus is separate. When you are clicking on it, the target is changing. So we are saying when you click on this, then you are getting the hash menu, right? It's look at the URL. It matches this in the URL. Look at the URL. So go to the top. Look at that hash menu. So this ID is menu. The URL also has hash menu over there. So that it is showing that you have clicked on this tab, this anchor. So this element is a target. So you are saying that menu is the target. So whenever menu is the target, then the page has to be moved. By default, it should not be moved. Only when the menu is the target, then you want to move the page. You don't want to move the menu. Yeah. Yes.
Like a tab navigation, you would be able to.
You could use focus. Focus, you could do that. Okay, any doubts so far? Okay, so about stuff like this, I'll discuss this at the very end. There are many different CSS selectors that you can utilize in addition to this. Not really. For some of them, yeah, you should go like 8 plus. Okay. So yeah, not everything that we are covering will be supported. You might have to use JavaScript to add support to some of this. Yes. Overlap. You have added the transition to the one with the class with the target. Add it to the main page itself.
That's what I'm trying.
Yes.
That's what I'm doing this.
Okay. All right. Has everyone gotten up to here? Anybody who hasn't gotten this, I'll talk about the transition next. I'll show you where you might have a problem. But up to here, how many have any questions up to this stage? Anyone? No? Alright. Okay. So let's take a look at the transition. Now, when you're adding the transition, don't add it to this element here. You need to add it to this element here. Okay? So let's do that. We want to add it to both the page and the menu link, right? So, okay, so now do that. Why isn't it working?
You added it to page.
Right. Yes.
Nav?
No, the nav is not supposed to animate. Only the page and the menu link are supposed to animate. But why isn't it working? Now, when you are doing stasis transitions, always remember that the position has to be set properly. Okay? So now see this. The body is the transition is happening there, right? But there's still one more problem. The body is supposed to move. It is not supposed to resize. It is resizing, right? Why is it resizing? Because we haven't set a bit. We're just saying move left 200 pixels. We have not said that it should go beyond. So set the width of the page. Okay. Now see this. It's working properly, but the link is not. The body is animating, but the link is not. Who can tell me why that's happening?
Just need to apply that to menu also.
But you have applied it to the menu, right? Here's the reason. We are not moving the link. We are removing one link and showing another. Right? It's not the same link. Got it? So what we need to do is, instead of showing and hiding it, we change the z index so that one comes above the other. So then both of them will move. One will go behind the other, and you won't notice that. Both links look identical, right? So instead of using display none, use z index. So say that here instead of display none, z index is -1, and here z index is 1. Let's see if that works. How about that? Now it's working. Because till now the problem was that one menu was being hidden, the next one was being displayed. There was no transition in between because the position wasn't changing. Two different elements were in use. Now we are having both the elements displayed at all times. We are just moving one behind the other. So both of them are moving together. You don't know when one comes out the other, it doesn't matter. That's it. So just take a look at this, and I think we have finished with our all the exercises that we had decided, so we still have some time to cover a few extra things. So let's just finish this. Any doubts if you have, let me know, and maybe I'll see if I can cover a few extra things.